around that. You can actually just remove the shackle. You can cut it and take the pieces out and then put a new one in if you have it. And you know, all these other kinds of defeats we talk about. The one on the right is funny because it sucks. So this is our tamper-proof seal, right? And so it's just this little piece that clips in, similar to our plunger seal. So we have it here, and you try and pull it, doesn't work. So you can, of course, just go in there with a lockpick and push those little legs back and pull it out. But what I thought was a really funny attack is you could take another shackle, which is funny, because you see they have these little tabs. So it's supposed to be where you can put a serial number so you can't just replace the shackle. So we'll assume that they're serialized. But you just take another one, and you kind of fit it down in. You see, somebody knows where I'm going with this. Oh, wait for it. And you take them out. And it reseals. Super. You guys want to play with this? Should I pass it around? Don't fuck it up for all the people in the back. Come here. I'm not throwing it. So have fun with that. At the Tamper Evident Contest, if they're still set up after the talk, they have some practice seals if you want to just take one home to play with. I unfortunately don't have, well, I do have a million seals, but I didn't bring them. But I'll have a couple extras up here afterwards. The next seal we're going to talk about is also called a padlock seal, but for different reasons. So you see they have different designs, different places they put the serial, different little shapes up here, and different shapes of the clip. But essentially, they're all the same thing. It starts open, right? And then you affix it to whatever you want to put it on, and you snap it closed. And the little legs dig into this middle piece, and the barbs prevent you from pulling it out. And it's actually a tough little seal. Whoa, I didn't push anything. We skipped several slides for no reason. Okay. So one cool attack is you could just clip it off, whatever it's on, and then you dunk it in salt water or anything that's conductive. And you can use a battery or a power supply, and you attach the leads to each side, and you could just essentially you rust it really fast. And because the main part of the seal is plastic, it's not affected. So you just rust these little metal pieces until they're gone. You pull the old clip out and put a new one in, and it works like a charm. So here's a picture of it once it's been through the electrolysis process, and then now it's ready to take a new clip. Now it's a little difficult to do. Sometimes you have to scrape out whatever little bits of the old clip might be in there. But it's a really cool attack, and it only takes about half an hour. And again, this doesn't need to be on the thing that you're attacking. You just clip it off and then put it in your solution and go. The other seal we're going to talk about is called metal cable seals. And this is the first of 3 seals, this type of seal, not necessarily the models that we're going to demo. This is the first of 3 that's approved by Customs and Border Patrol for their sealing needs, for all their tamper stuff. So they use the heavier duty cable seals, but essentially the same idea. And there was one that they used in this year's tamper contest, and I think all the teams defeated it, or at least the majority of them. So essentially what it is you put the cable through one side. I have another one here. So you put the cable through one side, and then it should lock into place, just like our little beaded cable seal. And there's a little spring in there that pushes a little gear. So when you try and pull back, the teeth of the gear and the braiding of the cable make it so you can't pull out. So what we could do is just shim it, right? So I have one prepared. You can see it passes tug test. You want to, come here. So just tug on that cable a little bit to make sure it's locked. Give them a thumbs up if it's locked. All right. People think I'm bullshitting them sometimes, so we got audience participation and all that. So I have my shim kind of just inserted, but you see it's still locked. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same we did for the other one, where we just kind of put it through. Oh, but I scrunched it. Oh, I broke it. Oh, I'm tarded. Okay, it's done. I'm tarded. Shut up.
Is that one locked?
Yeah, this one's locked. Ooh. Oh, it's tarded. I ruined it, sorry. Too much Jaeger. You can thank Dark Tangent for that. What you can also do is just put a little magnet on it, and it'll pull the gear away, and then you can pull the cable out. So hard drive magnets work. Obviously, you need a different magnet depending on the size of the gear, the strength of the spring, and the size of the cable, but definitely doable. The next seal we're going to talk about is called the metal ball seal, and these are, every company I could find that sells these sells them as tamper-proof. No tamper-resistant, no maybe you can tamper it. Tamper-proof, every company I can find. And so what it is on the top is unsealed. And so you pull the strap through, and then normally there's obviously the ball over this section, but there's rings clipped around each side. They don't go through, right? It's a ring like this, and it snaps together under the force. And when you push the strap through, it pushes the rings through, and they snap together when both sides can fit through the holes. And then you can't pull your strap out. So let's talk about how can we defeat this? Because this is a pretty complicated lock. It's very simple in design, but how do we defeat it, right? So to defeat it by so-called picking, we'd have to rotate the rings back and spread each of them to get the strap out. So that's pretty hard. And there's some in the contest area you can look at. It's a very small little area that you have to work with, and trying to rotate and spread in that area is very difficult. We could always try cutting the strap somewhere that they might not look at and repairing it. It'll probably fail the tug test, but maybe that's a basic defeat you could try. And then what about, can we counterfeit it? Can we change the serial number? Can we take another one and re-serialize it? Can we make our own strap and then serialize that? These are all varying degrees of difficulty, but just think about that. What else can we do? Anybody? Ideas? Thoughts? Comments? Concerns? You guys are quiet. I'm sorry? You can manufacture the rings, but how do you get the rings in there apart? And how do you get new ones on? Because that bolt doesn't, or the ball doesn't come off even if you cut the rings. Ah. I'm sorry? Vibratory. No, that will not work because you need to actually spread the rings. Nice try, though. Okay, so the defeat we came up with for this year's Tamper contest is we made dies to recrimp metal balls. So we get our target metal ball seal. We cut the ball off. We take two halves from other seals. We put them back on after we separate the rings and take it apart, put it on wherever it's supposed to go. And then we just recrimp it, right? So can you tell which of those photos has a tampered seal? Any of them? 1, 2, 3 of them? Well, I didn't tell the people at Black Hat, so I guess I can't tell you, but there's at least one of them has been tampered with. It's difficult, and it's kind of a contrived thing, obviously, because you only see one view of the seals, but it's very difficult to tell. So think of this from arm's length. Very difficult to spot. The next seal we're going to talk about is a bolt seal, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. There's lots of different varieties, and do they serialize both the bolt and the body? Is the bolt all metal, or is it covered in plastic? And then they have various little anti-spin techniques. So here's what most of the insides look of them, and there's two varieties. One uses a little clip, and one uses a ring. So this is an example of the clip one. It's just you put your bolt through, and then the clip snaps around the head of the bolt, and then you can't pull it out. You can also see on the left it has these flats to prevent you from twisting the bolt while it's in. You could twist it if you turn hard enough, but you'll chew up the plastic. And again, that'll leave evidence of tampering. So let's talk about some basic defeats for these. We could just cut part of it off and then try and reseal it and see how it works. Potentially difficult. It's easier on the all metal or all metal bolts, but varying degrees of success. We could also drill and repair or replace the bolt. So think, is that hard? It's pretty hard depending on the bolt. The ones that actually don't spin, probably a little easier because you don't have to worry about the bolt moving around. But you just put a drill at an angle, which is a difficult thing in the first place, and you just go down there and hit the little ring or the clip. Well, I'll tell you about something we did this year. We had a Tamper O Day. What we did was we made a custom little drill piece, and it just fit around the body of the bolt. And we put it on our drill, and it'd spin it, okay? So we'd spin it, and while spinning it, we'd pull both sides. And doing so causes friction between the little clip and the bolt. And it slowly chews away the bolt and the clip until it can pop open. And on tamperevidentwiki.com, after the conference, you guys can see all of our documentation. There's some videos of us doing this on YouTube. I think you just search DEFCON 19 tampering. Yeah, DEFCON 19 tampering, and you can see the video. And it works really quick, and it's pretty easy. And depending on the design of the bolt, it will leave no marks or little marks. And it's kind of a beta thing. We need to work on the design of the tool. But for now, it works really well, even though it leaves some marks on the body from just having to grab it. But we're working on it. So the next thing we're going to talk about are called crimps and wraps. So the first type are crimps that are similar to our mechanical seals, but essentially they're little pieces of lead or aluminum that we squish. And usually we squish them around a wire or something. So it's just a little frangible wire, and then you squish this piece over it, and then you can't separate the wire. So in this example, this little flag just gets rolled up over a wire, and it's very tight, and it's hard to pull the wire out. Most of these basic types of crimps aren't serialized, so they're very easy to counterfeit if you have the same, in this picture it has a USLC type thing. They're very easy to defeat if you have the same type of crimp or if you can replicate that type of effect. And there was a bunch of little crimps in this year's contest that everybody defeated. So here's an example of a squeeze crimp. So instead of the roll that just rolls that little flag up, you physically squeeze a little piece of lead or aluminum, and then you leave an imprint if your die has a little imprint. And these are kind of cool because if you actually take the time to inspect them very thoroughly, then you could get a pretty good degree of anti-tampering out of them. Because think, every time you crimp one of these little pieces, it's going to deform in its own unique way. So if you take a really high-resolution photograph of it and then you inspect it in that same manner, then you could potentially detect alterations to it or replacement. There's a lot of lead seals in the contest this year. They were all defeated. I think we all basically use the same thing where we clip the cable and then we put it back in and crimped over it so that it's stuck again. But there's lots of different things you could do. And again, so think about how far are you willing to go to detect tampering? Because it's obviously expensive the more you do and the farther you go. But are you willing to go that far? Think back to our example of Russia and the US with the postcards. How much mail are you willing to censor or pass through this tampering to detect spies and all that kind of stuff? This is a photo of the seal crimping tool. It's just a basic little hand tool. There's these self-crimping seals that are pretty cool, and essentially they're the same thing. You thread a wire through the back, but you could just snap them together with your fingers. They suck pretty hard, actually, the ones that I found at least. You can see on the right, that one's actually a fully locked thing, and you could just essentially put a little lockpick in there and push out the parts that need to be pushed out and reopen it. So this is something that's more familiar to you guys. And these are just little plastic wraps that fit around a lot of pharmaceuticals or food packages and that kind of stuff. And they kind of have mixed effectiveness. A lot of people put these on their products just to say, I have a tamper seal on my product, with no eye to how good it is or how valuable it is to quality assurance and that kind of stuff. But the real question with this kind of stuff on food and pharmaceuticals is what's your real goal, right? So is your goal to prevent replacement of the pills, replacement of the bottle? Is your goal to prevent people opening it and doing whatever they're going to do with full access? What if we just take a needle and inject some kind of doping agent onto the pills? Would that be detected? Because obviously, for the most part, you can bypass this little seal. Now again, we talk about defense in depth. We have for our normal bottles, we have all these layers of things that we have to go through to open it. But think of these things. Is that the right thing to do? A lot of these that are used aren't very good. And usually it's the design of the bottle, like this kind of seal is similar. And if you just put this in boiling water or just very hot water, it'll loosen up the plastic and you could just go pry it open. And depending on the container, what's inside of it, you could just get one off full and then just put it back on at your leisure. And the same is somewhat true for these, although these little plastic ones are a bit more, heat affects them a lot more than these bigger plastic seals. But a lot of them, how many of you have ever bought a product where you just kind of wiggled it off and you got it off intact, right? Oh, he was just raising his hand. He didn't have a question. I'm tarded. Sorry. How many of you, think of the ones you couldn't take off? How far do you have to cut up this little seam to get it off? Probably not all the way, right? Usually very little, if any at all. So think, how can we cut and repair that? And think a lot of these are pretty easy to counterfeit because nobody really serializes them. So you could just, if you have another one, you rip this one off, put a new one on, and then heat it back up so it shrinks. So think, again, how far are you willing to go to detect tampering? Are you going to take photos of the exact pattern that your little plastic wrap seals on